yeah, I'll introduce myself. My name is Arielle Courtney. I'm a partnership development consultant at the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources in the Parks and Trails Division. And I work out of the St. Paul office. I don't get to be out in the parks every day, sadly, but I try to help connect people to those nature experiences through various partnership opportunities. And one of the sort of tasks or initiatives that I've been working on in partnership with many other folks in the state and outside of the state agency is the Minnesota Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights. So there's some cards over there, and there should be some in the folders too. Has anybody heard of this yet? The Minnesota Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights?
This is the one that just passed recently.
Sort of recently, yeah. So it's an initiative of the Governor's Children's Cabinet and the Department of Natural Resources as like the co-leaders. So it was, I think you're thinking of Outdoor School for All, maybe. Yes. So the Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights is a list of 15 rights that all Minnesota children are, entitled to. So you can see the list of them there. Here's a little bit about me. That's myself and my daughter at Interstate State Park. So Kathy gave a great intro about, the science behind why nature is so important for our well-being and especially for our children's well-being. And, connection to nature is a fundamental human right. And especially here in Minnesota. So I mentioned here all the 15 rights. I won't read them all. And some of them are, kind of general, and some of them are more specific. But like you might think, okay, experience Minnesota's 4 seasons. Well, if you really start to think about that, what does it take for a child to really experience in a positive way all of our 4 seasons? Well, in the winter, that might mean they need the right gear, they need the opportunity at school, they might need sort of a mentor, whether it's a family or a friend or a neighbor or a trusted adult to encourage them and take them outside. And they might need kind of also the understanding and skills of how to be comfortable and what's safe and how to experience the outdoors, what to do out there. So there's more underlying a lot of these. But as we know, not all children in Minnesota have the access, information, skills, gear, or institutional and social supports needed to experience all of these rights. And for the Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights, we're really trying to figure out what can we do to ensure that all children can access these. And so one of the things that I like to think about is how are children invited into nature? What are the different ways in society that they have these opportunities? They might have an opportunity through a library, through their family and friends are probably the most common. People grew up doing outdoor activities, right? School is a key one that we're talking about here today. Faith-based organizations, community organizations, after-school programs, things like that. And even while, we've talked about the challenges of screen time, social media can also be sort of peer pressure and inspiring way to go outside, depending on the situation. And then, especially for all of you, social services and healthcare providers are other ways that children can be invited into nature. So for the Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights as a coalition, we're really trying to work together to integrate nature into these systems. Because a lot of these systems are very siloed, this has been a really unique opportunity for us to come together across sectors and across kind of fields and areas of expertise to say nature can be incorporated into all of these places. And so this is a little bit about our coalition here. The Governor's Children's Cabinet is led by one of the state agencies called the Minnesota Management and Budget, in partnership with us at the Department of Natural Resources. But we have many other state agencies and their leaders that have a stake in kind of children and family issues that are on the Children's Cabinet, including some citizen advisory members that provide guidance on the direction. So the Children's Cabinet focuses on all sorts of issues related to children, but the Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights is kind of one of those initiatives. And we have a pledge that more than 170 partners have signed on to help say, we think this is important, we're gonna do what it takes to help make this a reality. quality for all Minnesota children. And so we do, as part of this, have an action plan and some smaller teams that are working to kind of advance some of these rights and what that looks like. So our action plan includes, these are our kind of 3 primary priorities that we're focusing on right now. So, and it touches very directly to what Kathy had mentioned as to the recommendations. Empower schools and childcare facilities to expand and improve nearby nature space. Making sure that the space next to schools on school property is green, and where it's not green, what can we do to build green schoolyards, or what can we do to connect local parks to those schools and make that a partnership that teachers and other school staff can use. Also, identify and coordinate support for getting more children experiencing disadvantages outside. So as Kathy talked about, marginalized communities experience these disadvantages and lack of access to nature more, and also benefit from it more. And so we're working on those 2 things. But what I'll focus on briefly today is just the elevate nature as a partner for mental health and well-being in schools. So how can we bring that into schools for mental health purposes? So this is kind of our goal as part of that team, is how can we engage you as mental health providers and school staff to share educational resources, or how can we adopt nature as a partner, basically, for the work you do during the school day. So we've done a little bit of work so far, but I'm hoping that some of you will be excited about this and want to get engaged after I share a little bit about our progress. Did anyone receive a survey from the Department of Education or anything earlier this spring asking about this? Okay, so we spread a survey out. We had about more than 800 student support personnel, teachers, and administrators, and other school staff take this survey and just ask people, we know lots of you are already doing this work. What do you have to work with on your school landscape? How much green space do you have? What are your logistical barriers to working with nature? Do you have administrative support? And what are future opportunities that you might be interested in to incorporate nature into your work? So I won't get into the details of this because I can share more about that later, but we kind of asked people, like, do you bring folks outside? And there was a little bit of self-selection, I think, with the survey, so maybe more people than average said that they do bring kids outside as part of their work, with main goals being getting fresh air, exercise and release energy, recover from sensory overload, etc. And also kind of curious, like, what kinds of nature space are schools working with? And so that's some information too that we'll use for our other team in terms of expanding nearby nature space. And we wanted to know also, like, what kinds of improvements has your school already made and prioritized to their nature space, whether it's gardens, native plantings, nature play areas, that sort of thing. And this isn't surprising, right? Like, schedules are too rigid is one of the main barriers to using nature during the school day for well-being purposes. Concerns about behavior management outside, adequate clothing, and of course, as the summer of bad air quality continues, uncomfortable or unsafe weather, and how do we deal with that? So we kind of affirmed some of the suspicions we had about the barriers that are out there already, but then we also really wanted to dig into what are schools interested in. So, what kinds of resources, toolkits, activities, guides, a lot of you are familiar with or using these kinds of things already. What sort of funding might you need to help support this? What kinds of training platforms are you willing to participate in? Do you want to do, peer support networks or community of practices? And so here today is really an example of like what we're trying to do more broadly with some of this. And our next step is to, we got kind of a high level understanding of some of these interests and barriers, and we're gonna do some focus groups, hopefully with student support personnel in October, and some administrators to understand like what are the tools that are going to be that we want to use. So whether it's those information self-led resources, or whether it's like I know the Healing Forest cohort is going to be discussed maybe like that more broadly available. So we're going to try to get a little bit more detail about what that could actually look like to pilot. And so, then I think after we're getting some more of that detailed information from folks and having those conversations, we're going to, collaborate to develop some things or to lift up some things that are already happening and try it out probably, in the metro and then maybe a place or two in greater Minnesota to see what works and then hopefully expand from there. I also just wanted to give a shout out to the Children of Nature Network and the Nature is Healer framework, because we will be collaborating with them too on this work. They've developed an amazing framework that they've used with Casey Family Programs to train their therapists at Casey Family Programs to use nature in their work. And so we will probably be learning a lot from them in that process that they've worked on with Casey Family in this project. So definite, don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? So, okay, went through that very quickly, but if you haven't signed the Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights Pledge, go ahead and if you're interested in getting more information on a regular basis, we have quarterly partner meetings that are virtual. We do in-person meetings sometimes, and then if you're interested in getting more involved in the Nature for Mental Health in Schools action team, you can reach out to me as well. So.
Password is 123456789. If you need to log on or log on.
Yeah, otherwise just go to MNDNR or just Google Minnesota Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights. It'll get you there. And then you can sign the pledge there as well, if that's not working.
It's in it needs the QR code needs to be reactivated.
Okay, so don't use the QR code.
Aww.
Sorry, I was trying to be, tech savvy, but
Fancy pants.
yeah.
Awesome.
All right. I hope you'll join us. I have some business cards too. I would love to. You all are obviously at the leading, cutting edge of this work. So.
I forgot to mention you're all guinea pigs today. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.